Welcome to Super Talk, the podcast that scratches your superhero itch. Just two suburban dads nerding out over superhero stuff on the small screen and the big. Buckle up, people. Enjoy the ride. Hey, YouTube. All right. Happy Master Sunday. You ready, Professor?
Yep.
And 3.
Welcome to Super Talk, the weekly podcast dedicated to news and reviews of comic book media on the big and small screen. This is episode number 65. I'm your host, Brian Professor Pettis, and with me, as always, is my illustrious co-host, Titanium Tony Estrella. Titanium.
Professor, take us to school.
I think spring might be here this week.
Wow, yeah, the weather's turned, right? It's getting a lot better.
Yeah, I think we might get up into the 80s this week, which is, thankfully.
Man, it's been freezing lately.
Yeah, it's been crazy.
Yeah, a lot of shitty weather, but I'm glad it's turning for the best.
But we know what's here, and that's MoonKnight is here, and we're excited to continue to talk about it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. On Masters Sunday, a lot of fun watching the Masters today.
Yeah, that's isn't that the unofficial start of spring for a lot of people, right?
It is
we got
for me.
Opening day baseball this week.
Yep.
We had Master Sunday. Kind of signals the start of spring and things happening here. And
Caps won a good game. Nats even pulled one out. Ooh, that's gonna be a long season, but. Master Sunday. So yeah, it is for me. I mean, it's the most golf I usually watch throughout the year.
Yeah,
is today. So
congratulations to Scotty Scheffler. The guy's only won 4 of the last 6 tournaments he's played in, and he played so great this weekend. It was fun to watch.
He's on fire.
Yeah, he's on fire. All right, well, let's get started. Before we get started, we want to thank the patrons. Patreon.com/supertalk is how you become a patron. You now support the show directly, and you donate $1 an episode, and you help support Supertalk. Bring the show to all the listeners. So if you want to join the patreon.com/supertalk is how you do that. And we really appreciate those who are volunteering to do so today.
Yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
All right, well, let's jump right into our review section. And, of course, we're going to start, as we do every week, with the new content available to us. And this week we got episode 2 of the MoonKnight series on Disney+. What'd you think?
Pretty good. I liked the first episode better, but this episode was packed full of information. As far as moving the story forward, this episode really did that, and I thought it was really cool. Mr. Knight, how they brought Mr. Knight into it, but I thought it was a good episode. I loved the first episode. I thought that was amazing, but this was a cool episode. We got to see, Moon Knight a lot more in his costume and do more fighting, which is cool, and that's what I'm in for.
Yeah, I think we're gonna. We didn't get much of that at all in the first episode. Really, just the ending scene, and I think that was the teaser of this episode. And I think we're going to get more of that as the season moves on. This was, from my perspective, a very informational episode. We got a lot of the backstory of Steven and Layla. We got a lot of the backstory of Mark through Steven, through the conversations he had with Mark. So I did think it was a very informational episode. We learned a lot more about Arthur Harrow and kind of his organization and what their mission is. So I do think that this was a very informational episode, but the good news is they did weave in a lot of action into this episode. We did see different flavors of Moon Knight in this episode a couple of times, and I thought that was really well done. And this really kind of set up where they're going with the plot, right? We kind of now understand like the two competing factions of Moon Knight and Khonshu and Arthur Harrow and the Amit cult that he's established and what their kind of motivations are. And that really kind of sets the stage for where I think that the season is now going forward. And the conflict between Steven and Mark was much more prevalent. Like in the first episode, they really didn't give us a lot of Mark. They kind of hid it behind the blackouts that Steven was having, right?
And only in reflections, yeah.
Well, we got a little bit of him in reflections, but anytime we saw him we never really saw him on screen.
No.
It was we just saw blackouts that Steven would have and something would change. Whereas in this episode, we did get a lot more Mark Spector. As a matter of fact, in the end of the episode, we got a lot of Mark Spector, and we'll kind of talk through some of that detail. But I thought it was a great kind of informational episode. Really kind of set the stage of the series.
Yeah, and the tone. I mean, I think that we learned a lot more about Khonshu. You're right about the tension between the two deities, Khonshu and Ammit. I think we know more about that. I think we know more about Mark Spector. I think we know more about his relationship and what happened, how he became Moon Knight. Kind of, he mentions a few things there. So I think you're right, Professor. I think it was a great informational episode.
Yeah, and I think we'll kind of walk through some of the details. The episode started off with the aftermath of episode 1, right? At the end of episode 1, Steven reluctantly gave control of the body to Mark, allowing him to turn into the Moon Knight character and defeat the jackal that was hunting them. And, Steven wakes up the next morning, a scene that we've seen in the trailer of him, kind of running out of bed, and the chain on his leg basically, making him fall. Wondering if this was all real or if it was a nightmare. Again, he's really kind of still, not really sure what happened. But he goes to work and he finds out, yeah, it was all real because the entire bathroom has been roped off, and his security friend is there and said, "Oh my God, dude, there was some major stuff that happened last night." And he goes and he said, "Have you seen the video?" And the security guy was like, "No." And he goes, "I'm gonna watch it right now." He goes, "It's gonna blow your mind. Yeah. It's gonna blow your mind.
Prepare to have your mind melted."
Right. And so they end up watching the security footage, and interestingly enough, what we find out is that the only people that can see the jackals are Steven and Mark and the Moon Knight character.
Yeah, that was an interesting get in this episode. Even later on in the episode, Layla can't see who they're fighting. They're there. We know they're there.
Physically, they're there.
Yeah.
But they can't be seen by anybody else. And so the camera didn't catch any of that. And Steven's like, look right here. Oh, okay. Well there's got to be another angle.
Yeah.
And he knew something was chasing him, but it was never picked up on the camera. And ultimately, they find out that Steven was there, and they get the view of him walking out of the...
Or Mark Spector walking out of the bathroom.
Right.
And he gives that nasty glare up into the security camera, knowing that probably Steven is watching it.
Yeah, the security guy goes, "That's you, mate." And he goes, "No, that's not me." Right? So he knew what was going on there at that point in time, and gets brought into HR and gets fired effectively, right? Did you get the sense that the person that worked HR was working for the Arthur Harrow cult as well?
Well, we know they were littered throughout the museum. His cult, people of his in his cult were working at the museum. So yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, and because
he was kind of really calm.
He asked me, said, "Have you taken anything else from the museum?" I think he was searching for the scarab.
Yeah.
He's like, "Have you taken anything else?" He goes, No, I haven't nicked anything. I'm and so he ends up having to give up his name tag, but he gets fired effectively, and he's...
Well, they did offer to have him counseling, like a psychiatry, to have him, looked over.
And that's the other question, is the pamphlet they gave him that was like for the I guess the emotional support group that they were going to set him up with. Do you think that that's part of the cult as well?
I would think so, yeah. Just to learn about the cult, and that's how they indoctrinate some of their members, yeah.
Right. So, Steven's like, okay, that's great, mate. And so he ends up, taking off and going home, and he's like, well, I've been fired. What am I going to do now? And this is where he decides that he needs to find out more about what's going on. And he knows that he has the key that was left in the cubby up in his apartment, that with the phone that he has, there was a key, and he's like, I'm going to track this down, and to find out that key belonged to a company that runs storage units, and he had gone to all the different locations in the London area, and ultimately stumbled upon the correct one and was let into the storage unit. And the guy there recognized him.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, you were just here yesterday. He was like, oh, do you remember what unit I have?
Right. Yeah. And he said, yeah, I'll take you there. So he gets let in there, and then we see all the things that Mark has basically stored.
Another hidden QR code on the storage locker, by the way. If you rewatch that and scan that QR code, you get another Moon Knight comic online.
Right, and the Marvel Unlimited subscription service. They'll give you a free comic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, he gets let in there, and this is where he has a very kind of lengthy conversation with the reflection of himself that is Mark Spector. In the walls of the storage unit, he can see that reflection, and they're having a conversation. And he basically lets him know that, hey, here's what you're going to do. You're going to lie down on this bed and take a nap, and I'm going to take over, and everything's going to be good. And he goes, no, mate. He said, I'm going to grab all this illegal stuff, and I'm going to take it to the police. And he goes, don't do that. Don't do that.
Put me in jail. I want them to lock me away so this doesn't happen anymore.
Right.
And it's interesting that Mark Spector kind of gives a little insight on, well, I don't know what's happening. Before we kind of had our boundaries and we can kind of control it. But now it seems like it's harder and harder to control. Which I thought was interesting because it sounds like he's losing control, and whoever is in the body has more control over keeping out the other person.
We learn about that later, very certainly,
Yeah.
right? And, But Mark basically wants to take over and kind of solve things, and because we find that the Scarab is in a bag with a bunch of money and Mark Spector's passport, and this is what Steven says he wants to take to the authorities.
That
Mark's
passport revealed a lot, though, didn't it? He's from Illinois. He's from Chicago, so that's from his origin story. That's true to the comics. He's from Chicago. And also on that passport, we learned that it was just updated. So it was just updated in December, right? So we know that Mark Spector wasn't blipped away.
He wasn't blipped during the Thanos blip.
That was a big reveal there. That
So he's been around the whole time.
He's been around, yeah.
Yeah, and he tells Steven, you don't want to do that. You're going to get us in trouble. He goes, in trouble with who? He goes, well, he said, you want to know the truth? He says, I'm an agent of Khonshu. I'm his avatar, and which effectively makes us his avatar, and he's going to get pissed off, about this. And then all of a sudden, the lights start flickering.
Yeah, he says he has what is it called? A servitude or something. He has a debt to pay.
Have a debt to pay.
Yeah, if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be alive. That's what he says.
Right. And so he basically, lights start flickering, and he walks out, and then gets chased out of the storage facility by Khonshu, which is hysterical. But on his way out, he stumbles on the ground in the street, and Layla pulls up on the motorcycle, and she had been tracking his phone. And now, so Steven officially meets Layla, and she's completely like, give up the act. What are you doing? You're an idiot. Stop it. Stop with the accent. And Steven's like, what? What are you talking about? This is how I talk. He takes her back to his apartment, and we learn that, or Layla learns that he's not faking. That basically this is
something's up.
Yeah. That
she's starting to realize that maybe he's not completely faking it.
Right, and says that Mark had sent her divorce papers, but he never signed them. But he had sent divorce papers over, and he's like, I would never. Steven's like, I would never divorce you. Right?
So we know they're married.
Right. We know that Mark Spector's married to Layla. Mm-hmm. That we found out. We found out that he wanted to divorce her, but it sounds like it's for her protection, which we find out why later.
Yeah.
But then there's a knock on the door, and Steven is confronted by 2 local police officers.
Supposedly local police officers, but yeah. And Layla hides. She grabs the Scarab and the bag of cash and passports and stuff, and then she hides. She's
able to get out of the apartment without their knowledge, and then Steven's hauled away by the police in a car, and he's taken what he thinks he's being taken to the police station. Thinks it's because of something that happened at the museum, but come to find out that the 2 police work for the same cult that Arthur Harrow is running, and the 2 police officers drop Steven off at his cult, and Mark and Steven have a conversation with themselves inside the car, and Arthur Harrow overhears it on a radio that the police had left in the car, and he basically confirms that there are 2 personalities in the body, but they are working for Khonshu.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible. That was a revealing scene there, because now Arthur Harrow is kind of figuring out that he is definitely the Avatar, and that he is that was incredible, right? We found out that he was the Avatar of Khonshu.
That he's Khonshu's former Avatar. So he
knows. He's telling the truth.
He knows what Steven's going through. He said, all the voices in your head, they got to be driving you crazy. What's he saying to you now? Is he telling you to kill me? And we hear Khonshu yelling at him. And so everything that he's saying, because it sounds like William Harrow had been through this before as Khonshu's avatar, and he's like, look, I had to end the relationship for a couple of reasons. One, because he never really wanted to do what really needed to be done. But two, I always knew there was something else that he wanted me to do. He would never let me go unless I decided to leave.
Right. Yeah, it was incredible. And, is Khonshu a bad guy? I mean, he doesn't sound like he's the straight and narrow. I mean,
well, he's, the Egyptian god of justice, right? And Arthur Harrow says, look, his form of justice is not the real justice that the world needs, right? And he said, Ammit has a better form of justice.
Right. The whole gardening analogy, right? That was hilarious.
Oh, well, he brings them inside of, and we come to find out this little town they're in is basically the entire town is run by the cult. And he's talking about how, this was one of the most crime-ridden parts of town before we came in here. Now everybody leaves their doors open at night. We're all friends and neighbors, and we all get along. And everybody seems very beholden to him and thankful that he's around. And we go inside of the building that we've seen in the trailers that Arthur Harrow's in, and there's free food, and they're playing whale movies on the TV screen. But Arthur Harrow has a conversation with Stephen about what he's gotten into and why Ammit's way is better.
Yeah.
And you're right. He says, we need to cleanse the earth of all the evil and wicked people out there. And Stephen's like, even children?
Yeah.
And he's like, so, well, if you had a gangrene arm, amputation can be, can save your life. He says, yeah, but you're killing children, Yeah,
they're judging, he says they're judging the innocent and killing the innocent before they've committed any crimes.
Even maybe decades before they would have committed a crime.
It's like you don't wait for the weeds to grow in the garden. You get rid of the weeds before they start to grow. And that was his whole thing, that, to have a perfect garden, you need to weed it before the weeds grow. So I get that, but I guess Khonshu is a little bit different. He protects the innocent and, brings down his justice in other ways. But
it was amazing how much he knew about what Stephen was going through and what Khonshu was and wasn't able to do without him. He's
so was Arthur Harrow the avatar for Ammit?
Now he is. He said, and now I'm Ammit's avatar. So
okay, he did say that.
He said that he gave up the Khonshu deal to make a deal with Ammit.
Okay, yeah, he's got a sliver of the power in his cane of Ammit.
Right, he says, this is just one gift that I've been given from Ammit, and it's just a sliver of her power and everything. And and that's kind of a scary, all the people that are part of the cult like back up when he kind of holds the staff up and he's like, whoa, what's going to happen here?
What was the whole conversation about his brain being fractured, and that's why Khonshu took over, because he knew that the mind was weak already?
Well, he asked him that question. He says, do you think he chose you as an avatar because your mind was already weak and he could manipulate you, or do you think your mind's weak because you're the avatar of Khonshu?
Right.
Like, he asked that question.
Yeah.
And, Stephen has no idea, right?
No.
He wouldn't know the answer to that.
Well, I thought that was interesting that he was onto that, maybe...
and he said that's why the scales never balanced, right? Because there was so much
chaos.
Yes.
So it'd be interesting to verify if, in fact, he had the split, like in the comics, he had the split personality before the DID identity disorder that he has, before Khonshu found him, and that's why he took him over. Interesting. I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, I think we'll learn that. I think they're going to go through, and it looks like from the previews for next week that we're going to get that moment of when Khonshu offered him save his life in return for his servitude. So I think we're going to get that next week.
And in the comics, did Mr. Knight appear at a certain personality when it was in control? No, that was
all new
right?
too,
that was all
right?
New?
Yeah, and that was kind of an interesting, what we found out next was, Arthur Harrow wants the scarab. He said, just give me the scarab and I'll let you go. Just give me a scarab. And he's like, I don't have it. And Mark's whispers are, do not tell him who has it, because he knows Layla has it. And, Stephen thinks Mark doesn't want to have anything to do with Layla, but Mark knows that he's been only trying to protect her, and that's the reason why he didn't even want her to don't tell her anything, don't bring her into this, right? If you show her the scarab, she's going to get killed, and we saw that back in the apartment, and ultimately she shows up with the scarab and
to save his life,
right? And she says to him, summon the suit. that was the name of the episode, was Summon the Suit. And he's like, what suit? He says, the suit, summon the suit. And he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about, right? And then they kind of run away. They make kind of an escape out, and that's when Arthur Harrow uses the cane to basically manifest a new jackal to hunt them down.
Yeah, he almost opens up a portal into another dimension, like that green portal, like when Doctor Strange was ripping through reality in Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yeah, it was like this purple and pink light coming out of the floor.
Ground. It was like and then the jackal came out of it, right, and started hunting them down.
Right, and they end up in some room, and Steven's like, I have no idea what you're talking about, and she's like, this is crazy, and we're gonna get killed, and he's like, I'm gonna die in a crazy man's man cave or whatever, and the jackal eventually breaks through the door and tackles Steven outside the window, and he's falling. And then all of a sudden, he's saying to himself, summon the suit, summon the suit, summon the suit, and falls to the ground, and he falls to the ground in the Mr. Knight costume.
He does a superhero landing.
You're right.
And then he falls over.
Yeah, which is kind of funny.
It's awesome. I think the Mr. Knight outfit is badass. I mean, it's so
cool. In the comics, Mr. Knight was just another kind of version of Moon Knight that he would bring out to kind of be that world's greatest detective version of Moon Knight, right? Instead of hunting down people and taking out bad guys, this is somebody that needed to be a detective, and that was the Mr. Knight costume. Well, it looks like what they're doing in the show, which is brilliant, is they're using that version of Moon Knight as the way the suit manifests itself when Steven's in control.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's really cool.
And he still has like batons.
The two batons, right?
Yeah. And I guess he's still pretty indestructible. He was getting thrown around pretty good. It would have killed anybody else,
and super strong, right? He still has super strength because he grabbed the fender of a car when he was getting up one time, and it kind of crunched in his hands, and he's like, oh, I'm super strong. And eventually he's like, all right, I'm going to take this jackal out. And this is when we found out Layla makes her way down as well. We find out that he's getting beat up by this jackal, and nobody is seeing what's happening except him. Yeah. Layla can't even see it.
Right.
And she eventually throws a bottle at the jackal that has some liquid on it. You can kind of see the silhouette of the jackal. So it's physically there.
She knows it's there, yeah.
And she's trying to help him, but she can't see the thing. But he basically is like, okay, I'm going to take this thing. And he throws a punch and hits it, and hits it pretty good.
Yeah.
But eventually gets like tossed around like a rag doll. And that's when Mark looks at him in the reflection of a bus. And there's a lot of innocent people around. And he's like, look, let me take over. I can handle this.
Get him away from the crowd.
If you don't let me take over, people are going to get hurt.
Right.
And that's when he says, okay, take over. And that's when the real Moon Knight shows up.
Oh, great scene.
Yeah.
Badass scene. That was so awesome.
And then, Layla says, get him out of here.
Yeah.
And he leads the jackal on a chase of him through the rooftops of London and get him away from all the innocent civilians. And then eventually they chase him so much that they jump off of the edge of a building, and Moon Knight just basically impales him on the top of a spire that was sitting on the ground. It was really, really cool scene.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. That was a great action scene, and really some really cool shows the ability of the suit, right?
Right. He has the sickle, throwing sickles that he has that he
gets from his chest as many as he needs. It looks like you kept pulling some of them off.
Right.
It was kind of cool.
Yeah. And so that was really cool. But then at that point in time, Mark's now in control, and now he has a full conversation with Steven
in the reflection,
who is now in the reflection, and he's like, I've never been here before. Like, he had never been behind the mirror like Mark had been. And he's like, well, this is terrible. I hate this feeling. I don't like this. And Steven said, well, now you know what it's like. Or Mark said, now you know what it's like to be on the other side.
Yeah.
And, Steven's like, I'm taking over control. And Mark tells him, I think things have changed. Something has changed because now the person that's in control is stronger. Yeah. So whoever has control of the body is stronger. And only when that person decides to give up control of the body to the other one does it really happen.
Yeah.
Or unwillingly or unknowingly, right? Maybe when they're sleeping or something like that, right?
Yeah, and he kind of explains to him about the armor of Khonshu that he can summon and put on, which is kind of cool too. So I thought,
he said, I told you to summon a suit. It was a ceremonial armor of Khonshu that was in the crypt, not something Colonel Sanders.
Not from Colonel Sanders.
Yeah, something Colonel Sanders. It was so funny.
It was hilarious.
Yeah, but then. Khonshu confronts Mark and says, "Hey, look, you said he wasn't going to be a problem. You said he wasn't going to interfere in our deal." And Mark tells him, they have Khonshu and Mark now have a conversation saying, "Look, I got it. I got this under control. It's not going to be a problem." And then we find out that Khonshu has tagged Layla
as the next
as a replacement for Mark.
Yeah.
And saying, "Well, I might just have to end our deal now." He says, because, I've got my replacement already picked out, and I know you don't want her to do that, but if you can't deliver, and he says, no, I'm going to deliver on our deal, right?
Right.
So Mark, again, is now, we find out the reason why he wanted to divorce her and take her away from all this, why he never contacted her over the phone, was because Khonshu had basically threatened to use Layla as the next Avatar, and he didn't want her to be...
Do you think what he could do is take Mark's life and kill Mark, and say, if you want me to bring him back, you have to be my Avatar on Earth to save Mark's life?
I don't know if Layla knows anything about this.
Yeah. Well, she knows about the suit.
But she doesn't know anything about the deal that Mark has with Khonshu. Right. And she doesn't know anything about the fact that Khonshu wants her as her next Avatar.
Yeah, as far as we know, she doesn't know that. But maybe she did see him die. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. But that kind of was like, God, what a dick move, Khonshu. I mean, you're going to use his wife against him to do your bidding. But
then he finds out that the Avatar, the Scarab, had been dropped during one of the fight scenes, and he says, we see Arthur Harrow pick, somebody random had picked it up on the street, and Arthur Harrow says that belongs to me, and he ends up killing the guy who picked it up, which is kind of interesting. And Layla saw the whole thing, but Mark says, "Don't worry about it. We'll get to Amit's tomb before they do. We're going to take care of this." And he says, "Okay." He says, Khonshu tells him, "I'm going to give you all the of my power necessary to help stop this." He says, "But you better live up to your end of the bargain." Yeah. And he says, "Well, where are we going? Where do you think?" And then all of a sudden, the next scene is Mark is sitting in a room in some hotel somewhere, we don't know,
drinking liquor,
right? Getting trash, and it's Mark. He's getting trash, and he opens up the curtains, and we see that he's in Giza. Where the Great Pyramids are, and he'd been either transported there or got there somehow, but that's where he is now. That seems like that's where the next episode's going to pick up.
Yeah, great episode. I liked it a lot. It definitely very informative and answered some questions. A lot of people were like, "Well, what's going on with the first episode?" They loved it. People were like, asking me all these questions. I said, just go back and watch our episode where we explain who MoonKnight is. First of all, we'll help you understand what's happening. And this second episode, I'm sure will answer some questions, and it sure did. It delivered.
Yeah, I think the first probably 3 or 4 episodes are going to be a lot of backstory, maybe some flashbacks, and I do think we're going to get a flashback next episode of him dying and becoming the Avatar of Khonshu. We'll see that scene, and it looks like maybe Steven's back for some part of next episode as well. We see some conversations between him and Layla in the trailer for next week. So I'm sure that dichotomy is still going to continue.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think, the first 3 or 4 episodes are going to be a lot of informational before we get into what is Arthur Harrow's end game? What is he trying to do? Why is he trying to resurrect Amit? And what's his plan? And how is Moon Knight going to stop it? I mean, it's just going to be great. I mean, the action's going to be fantastic going forward.
They did a really good job of building sympathy, empathy, emotional attachment to Stephen Grant.
Yeah.
Stevie. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, the internet is, they were devastated. He lost his job. The scene of him getting stood up in the restaurant and just the agony and like confusion on his face about that. A lot of people are pulling for Stephen. Which is great.
I don't think he's going anywhere. So, yeah, I think he's going to be part of this.
I think he kind of has
Oscar
to be, right?
Isaac has played this brilliantly. I mean, to flip between the two personalities with a different accent and the different, it's been great, and I think he's done a great job.
The one thing that sucks about this show, and it's really bad, is that we have to wait a week to see the next one. Right? That's tough, but I guess it's better than I like binge watching a lot of stuff. We've gone through this before. We've talked about this before, but. It sure does prolong the excitement and also get this momentum of how great this show is going, because it gets people talking and more people are tuning in and tuning in and tuning in. It's not just one whitewash and then it's done. So
yeah, and a lot of the media got to pre-screen the first 4 episodes, so they've seen the first 4 episodes already, and we have no details about the next 2 episodes, but all they've all said is episode 4 is off the charts good, and you will be just blown away. So, like, I can't wait for episode 4. And then I'm like, and we've seen that in the other kind of limited series that Disney Plus has given us. It seems like the first few episodes are very set up, but then there's a crescendo episode where it's like, oh my God, now shit is real. Like, and like Falcon and Winter Soldier, that was the episode where U.S. Agent, killed the guy with the shield, or like, holy crap, right? And in Hawkeye, that was when Yelena Belova showed up on the rooftop, right at the end of that. But so you were like, so I think that we're going to get there, episode 4, and then the last 2 are just going to be fantastic.
Yeah, the director even said 5 and 6 are very dark and very deep. So I don't know what that means, but I can't wait.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to episode.
It's been good, and we'll enjoy it. And again, we'll review episode 3 next week, so it'll be fantastic.
Great show.
All right, well, let's get into some news items for the week. And, we still don't have a trailer for Thor: Love and Thunder.
It broke a Marvel record.
Yep, this is now the longest we've waited for a Marvel movie to release a trailer prior to the release date. That was previously The Incredible Hulk, I believe, was that movie.
97, 93, 97 days, something like that.
Yeah, it was. And we're now within that window now for Thor: Love and Thunder. But we did get a couple of things this week that's giving me hope, and we'll make a prediction on the show this week, but I'm hoping it comes true. Chris Hemsworth sent out a tweet. It was a picture of him and Taika Waititi and Valkyrie, played by... Give me some help, Titanium.
I butcher names. I can't just come up with names. I gotta write shit
Tessa
down.
Thompson.
Yeah.
So we got a picture of the three of them sitting in some chairs, and he said, "Hey,
this is the promotional tour that they're
right." He says the early promotional
the fingers up.
Yeah. So the early promotional tour for Thor: Love and Thunder has begun. I'm on set with two incredible people. He said, "Stay tuned. This movie's going to be insane." Mm-hmm. And the picture is showing them with fingers up, and Taika Waititi is holding up two peace signs.
No, he's just holding this.
Two ones, yeah. And then Chris Hemsworth is holding up, two like this,
Rock.
Right? And then Tessa Thompson's holding up the peace signs.
Yeah.
So we believe that they're saying 11/4/22, which is Monday, because here in the U.S.
That is a stretch.
Here in the U.S. we do it month, day, year, but everywhere else in the world it's day, month, year. So we believe that picture is teasing the fact that on 11/4/22 the trailer's coming out. So we're hoping tomorrow we're going to get that teaser trailer finally for Thor: Love and Thunder.
That is a stretch, but I like it.
I don't think it's a stretch at all. I think they teased it.
Okay, that's an interesting.
Why else would they be doing that?
I don't know.
I think there's so many Easter eggs in those things.
I hope you're right. I think I'm going to cross my fingers. I hope you're absolutely
tomorrow
right.
morning, 9:30 a.m.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I bet you come. So that's the theory now, that will come out tomorrow. So
we will review it next Super Talk then.
But we did get some interesting insights, and one of the ways we get insights in these movies that are really kind of so far off that we know about is through the toys. So the toy releases really tell us not only things about the plots and things we might see in the movie, but also costumes and all kinds of other things. Well, we got some earlier stuff from the Lego sets that were coming out. We got to see Gorr the God Butcher and a bunch of other things. Well, now Marvel Legends has announced its Thor: Love and Thunder series. The series of 7 different action figures are going to be releasing for Thor: Love and Thunder. And interestingly enough, we got some things from there that are kind of insightful.
Yeah.
The Valkyrie character on the package is called King Valkyrie. So we're confirming that Thor passing on the mantle of King of Asgard to Valkyrie is now an official title that she's going to carry in the movie.
Yeah, that's super cool, and she's got new armor too.
Yeah, very cool. And we got we got a figurine of Groot, and we got a figure of Star-Lord. So we've seen them on set. We know they're going to be part of the movie, at least maybe early on in the movie. So we believe that confirmed that.
Ravager Thor.
Yep, we got the picture of that we've seen in some of the leaked set photos of him. In like a red vest with a white tank top, and they're calling that Ravager Thor. It's kind of his Thunderstruck outfit from the comics, but it's really him when he was with the Ravagers right after he's been working out on the Bowflex that Star-Lord bought, right? But yeah, so and we got 2 costumes for him, and we got a good view of his new
his new armor.
Yeah,
his new helmet. Yeah, that looks really badass.
And then we also saw the Mighty Thor, which is female, and this is kind of what we believe is part of the plot: is Jane Foster becoming the Mighty Thor officially?
Yeah, right? And it looks like her hammer is also put together, like it has cracks and things for it, so you can
Mjolnir reforged.
Yeah, reforged. I mean, and it's obvious that it is because the pictures of it has all these cracks and stuff that you can kind of see that it's held together with something that it has been put back together, which is really cool.
By magic,
or by hook or by crook, right?
Right.
Well, we'll see. We're going to learn, but she looks. A smoke show, first of all, and her armor looks badass too. Very comic book accurate.
Yes, and but hey, I'm crossing my fingers and hoping that we'll have some good news tomorrow.
And what else did we see?
What else? I know. What else did you see?
We saw
Gorr the God Butcher.
Yeah,
right?
We saw his figure, which is more detailed than I originally thought. Like his skin has kind of like Drax type of raised tattooing on it on his arms and stuff. And also the sword, the Necro sword.
Necrosword, right? Yeah.
He's got the Necro sword in there, so I thought that was really cool. I think the Lego kind of spoiled that, right? Because he was holding that black sword, but he's going to have the Necro sword, which is really cool and very comic book accurate.
Yeah. Again, hopefully the trailer comes out this week, and we're going to have lots to talk about next week. So that'd be fantastic. I'm going to
lose my mind if it comes out tomorrow. That'll be awesome.
Yes. All right, well, let's go on to the next news item. And look, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Tickets went on sale last week. We got another kind of trailer for the Doctor Strange movie. Really, couple new, really cool scenes. The most important one was we saw the Strange Supreme version of Doctor Strange that we had seen in previous trailers had a third eye in the middle of his head, which was
freaky. Yeah, that
really,
was
really cool.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting and seeing where that goes. But then we also saw some scenes of Wanda, what seemed like she was fighting with Wong at some point in time.
Yeah, it looked like they were together fighting something.
Right. And there were some animated kind of statues behind them that looked like, that
they had come to life.
They had come to life.
It was going to help fight with them.
Right. So interesting scenes that we had seen from the new trailer. But tickets went on sale this past week. Titanium's already bought our tickets, which is fantastic.
Yep.
But they set a record for Fandango pre-sales for 2022. Now, it's 2022, which is not... We're only in April. But the fact that the Batman came out this year...
And killed it.
Did really well, but Doctor Strange has already eclipsed that record.
Yeah.
And the pre-sales already, from what we've seen from Fandango, are leading us to believe we're looking at a 200 million plus weekend for opening weekend of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
That'd be tremendous. Yeah, I mean, when I got the tickets, the theater was crowded. I mean, it was getting filled up, and I got them the day they were released.
So this movie is now the largest or most successful pre-sale that's a non-Avengers Marvel movie. So not Age of Ultron, Infinity War, Endgame.
Wow.
Any of the non-Avengers Marvel movies, this is the largest pre-sale they've ever done.
Outstanding.
That's really good news. Yeah. Right, really good news for
a lot of people looking forward to that movie.
Yeah, and I think just with all the tie-ins and the cameos and the possible cameos and all those other things, look, we might see some X-Men in this. We might see different versions of Iron Man, different versions of Captain Marvel.
I hope it's sealed solid. I hope we don't find out anything until the movie. I would really enjoy that. I'd like that a lot. So I hope that happens.
Well, we're
getting close.
Less than a month away, buddy.
Yeah.
So this is going to be exciting. Yeah. So that'll be a really, really... And again, we're going to get MoonKnight all the way through this. So the fact that we get to kind of get through the rest of the month with MoonKnight and then hit the ground running with Doctor Strange at the beginning of May, that's going to be fantastic. And it looks like it's been confirmed that Namor is going to be the villain of the Black Panther Wakanda Forever movie. We did get some confirmation that character was going to be in the movie. We believe there's an actor that had been cast to portray that role. There was some talk already of Namor being in this movie, but now this is confirmation that the big antagonist, the big bad, what Wakanda's going to be fighting against is most likely Atlantis and Namor as the big villain of the movie.
Sign me up. Take my money right now.
Right.
Take my money.
We've already kind of when we heard this the first time, we're like, yes, please, and
Yes.
now we're just yes, please, more, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait for this movie. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, and from what we hear, everything's on track. From what we hear, that movie is primarily wrapped. They've completed principal photography, and they're in the editing room, and they're doing special effects and all kinds of other things to finish that movie up. But there was some talk about that movie possibly being delayed. But from what we hear, it's done. And it's pretty much in the can already.
We might get a trailer before Thor trailer.
Well, I think the hope would be that we get that trailer with the Thor movie in the July timeframe, because that's coming out in November timeframe, right? Mm-hmm. So, that would make a lot of sense. So hopefully we do get it around that timeframe, right? And then you had some interesting news about our friend Ezra Miller.
Yeah, I'm sure you're happy to hear this, but there is a
never
movement.
Happy to hear this.
Well, there's a movement online to have him kicked out, to have him replaced, not in the Flash movie, but moving forward, have him replaced as the Flash. And this is just fan petitioning to have it, because I guess he was arrested in Hawaii at a karaoke bar for, attacking somebody and then getting into this confrontation, and who knows. And then apparently he broke into this hotel room and stole passports and money, or a wallet and passports from somebody, and this couple got a restraining order against him. Now, it's unknown if I think he knew them, and there was an argument between him and the couple, like maybe they were part of his staff or whatever, but they got a restraining order against the guy. How bizarre is that? He's a problem. He's a problem to the point where his movie that's out now, what is that? The
Fantastic Beasts.
The Fantastic Beasts, yeah.
Something of Dumbledore.
Dumbledore,
Yeah.
They wouldn't even let him go on the press tour for that, to promote it.
Yeah.
He wasn't. They said,
and that's
no,
that's kind of very similar to what's going on with Will Smith right now. It's kind of like you kind of get Hollywood kryptonite, right? And the question then becomes, look, the good news is the Flash movie has already been delayed until like middle of next year now, right? So that, we do have a massive delay of that movie already. But, do you really want the person that's the primary star of your movie, who's going to be responsible for not only promoting the movie but making it successful, being in this kind of trouble? This is just not good for DC. No. But you can't, like you said, you can't recast them at this point in time. No. They've already been filming
shot
that movie.
Yeah.
Right?
That movie's shot. They can go back and do reshoots. I'm sure they will. But that movie, they're not going to recast him at that movie. But I thought that was interesting that's out there.
Look, and that's been part of my issue with him being cast in that role. We've only seen him in a movie, in the Justice League movie. You had a very small scene in Batman versus Superman, but in the Justice League movie, we got to see him in that role, and he was okay. He wasn't great. He's not that like endearing quality that you really want in the Barry Allen character, because that's what makes Flash kind of one of my favorite DC characters, is that Barry Allen's just a cool guy. Yeah. Like, he's somebody you want to root for. And Ezra Miller just doesn't have that I want to root for him feeling to me.
Yeah, like the Flash TV show that Grant Gustin's in.
Yeah, Grant Gustin plays. He's fantastic.
Oh, kids love him.
Yeah, plays that role perfectly.
Yeah, he's good.
So we'll see what happens going forward, but it does not bode well for this movie.
No.
My hopes for this movie were low because of Ezra Miller, and they're now not getting any better. I'm really angry, because Flash is a very he's special character to me.
Yeah, no question.
He's fantastic.
Well, I hope it works out, but you're right. He's got Teflon. He's got the Hollywood Teflon on him, like Will Smith. Banned from the Academy Awards for 10 years. That's it. Come on. I thought that was...
Well, he's going to pay the price in a lot of different ways. He had, 2 projects for Netflix on the docket, and those have been canceled. So, Will Smith's going to pay the price in a lot of different ways, I'm sure. But, he's entered rehab, so he's going to be a better human being.
We'll see. Yeah. Is that their answer? So did Harvey Weinstein. So...
All right, well, let's get into our topic of the week this week. It's brought to us by our friends over at Studio G Studios.
Home of the man band, corner of the cob.
Yeah,
all right.
Please go visit their YouTube page. We always link it in our show notes. Go support them, because they've been great supporters of us. Thank you, Studio G, for all the help that you give us. We really appreciate it.
My boys. Yeah, nice job.
So our topic of the week this week, after we completed our show last week, we did a pretty extensive review of the Morbius movie last week, and one of the biggest parts of our review was how disappointed we felt leaving the theater because of the end credit scenes, and how the end credit scenes themselves really diminished our ability to enjoy what we just saw.
Yeah.
And had we not even seen the end credit scenes, we would have been like, the movie was okay.
Yeah,
it was good. It wasn't great, but it was
nope,
good.
Wasn't great.
But, the end credit scenes just put a bad taste in our mouth. And then
awful.
Right after we got off the air last week, you and I were talking, and I'm like, you know what? There's a couple of end credit scenes that they could have done instead of those that would have made the entire audience so excited.
Yeah.
Not only for the future of the Morbius character, but the future of the Sony Spider-Verse that they're trying to set up. I'm not. I made it clear last week that I think a lot of the changes that were made to this movie and the reasons those end credit scenes were in there was because Sony's now made a decision they're going to build their own Spider-Verse and make all their own money without Marvel's help or without Marvel's involvement. And I think that's stupid. But that really drove what they did, and the feedback from the audience has been enough that we know where that's going. But
I would have loved to have seen this movie originally, like when it was first supposed to come out.
Back in 2020.
I wonder if it would have been better.
Well, I don't think we would have... We definitely wouldn't have felt as bad about the stupidity that they did with the end credit scenes, and we would have just taken it for what it was, right? Yeah. Just a kind of an origin story, right?
Yeah.
Hey, an origin story that was done okay, you know. But you and I talked about this. Said, you know what? There's a couple of end credit scenes they could have put in here that would have not only saved the movie, but we would have now been excited about what's going to happen going forward. And we went to dinner that night. And you're like, oh. Why didn't you say that on the show? And I'm like, well, we'll just talk about it next week. So,
brilliant.
So the topic of the week this week is how Super Talk could have saved the Morbius movie and the future of the Sony Spider-Verse.
No shit. Yup.
So we talked about a couple of ideas for some post-credit scenes, and I think the first and most important one would have gone down like this. So Morbius ends the way that it ended. That doesn't change. And then we get kind of the flicker. We see the skyline of New York City, and maybe even the stupid picture that they put up of the rip tear in the sky or whatever. And we see bright light, and we see Andrew Garfield's version of Spider-Man coming back into his own universe.
Right.
Patting himself. I'm like, whew, I'm home.
Yeah.
Right. And he sees something familiar that would kind of let us know that it's his version, like maybe the Oscorp building or something that's familiar to his world, right? We're like, oh, he's back in his own universe. And then he looks down and he sees a Daily Bugle on the ground, and he picks it up, and it's the headline of, Michael Morbius suspected of, killing people and sucking blood and all kinds of, living vampire. And he's like, man, time to get back to work.
Yeah. That
would have just gotten everybody excited. So now we know that Venom and Morbius and Andrew Garfield's version of Spider-Man are in the same universe. And people would be like, oh my God, this is the Andrew Garfield version. And we can look forward to another movie with him and having him, maybe be the Spider-Man that ends up showing up in future versions of the Sinister Six movies and all these other. That would have just gotten everybody excited.
Dude, if you had Andrew Garfield in the end credit scenes, he could be coming out of a bathroom stall and be like, I didn't expect to come back in there, or anything with Andrew Garfield in it is a winner. He was so popular at the end of that movie. People just climbed onto him. Like
there's been so much
hype and so much movement for him to move forward with Spider-Man.
AMS3. They're saying AMS3.
Yes.
Amazing Spider-Man 3. Everybody wants to make the third movie that he never got to make because he was recast.
If I had seen an end credit scene like you just described, I would have lost my mind.
Exactly.
I would have been like, that was a great movie. It might even have changed my perception of the movie because...
And you didn't like,
I would associate it.
I know where they're going.
Now, right, clear direction. We've
got the Venom. We've got Morbius. We've got some other things coming out in the future. Oh, this is where they're going.
Yes. Awesome.
But, again, my defense was, that means they would have had to sign Andrew Garfield to an extension, and they would have had to, and then after the movie came out, they would have had to publicly say, we have some plans, we just can't, and you were like, so what?
Yeah,
do it.
Sign him to even if it was just for,
cameo.
For the cameo, at least you get the excitement and the moving forward with this. And then the second end credit scene that you were talking about.
Yeah, the second one was more kind of teasing what we know is coming out from Sony here in the very near future. So I'll paint the scene. We're in Kenya, Africa, and we see a male lion walking through the jungle. And it looks like it's stalking something, but we're not really sure what. Then all of a sudden, a man jumps down from the tree, lands on top of the lion. They start wrestling, roars from the lion, he grunts from the guy, and all of a sudden the guy gets on the lion's back, puts his arms around his head, and snaps his neck. And then we see the guy pull a knife out, and he starts cutting stuff, and then he takes the mane of the lion, drapes it over his shoulders. He turns around to face the camera, and we get Andrew Taylor Johnson as Kraven the Hunter, and then fade to black.
Yeah. It would never happen in woke Hollywood, killing an animal like that, but that would have been stunning. Like, that would have been shocking. It would have been controversial. It would have been gory. It would have been, like, a shock value. But
it would have been a 30-second introduction to Kraven the Hunter. He's got superhuman strength, superhuman speed. He's got the agility of an animal, and he hunts animals with his bare hands, and it's what he did. And it would have been like, oh my God, I can't wait to see this movie now.
Yes, that would have been awesome. And once again, just like you said, a clear direction moving forward of where they're going. Great two end credit scenes. It would have changed the whole perception of that movie, I think.
And I think we talked about this last week, Titanium. Had I walked out of that movie not seeing the end credit scenes, and I came in here to do the show, my feeling of the Morbius movie would have been completely different.
Same.
Even if I had said, you know what, I'm not going to watch them. I'm going to come in and let you tell me what they were after we do our review of the movie, and then I would have been pissed off.
Yeah.
Then I would have been angry.
I know.
But it wouldn't have changed the way that it would have changed the way that I felt about the Morbius movie. And again, I felt the Morbius movie was good, not great, not exciting, not amazing, but it was good. I mean, I thought it was entertaining. But the end credit scenes just made me so angry at Sony, so confused about what's going forward. They had spent an entire 2 hours making Michael Morbius into this, life-loving, life-saving doctor, and then he hooks up with the Vulture, and they're gonna go hunt Spider-Man.
Yeah, they're gonna team up and do bad stuff.
Hey, I think it has something to do with Spider-Man, and I'm like, what?
That was awful. I don't even want to talk about it. It was so bad. So bad.
So I feel that the movie itself, people's impressions, number one, they would have gone to the movie to see these end credit scenes.
Oh, no question. As soon as that end credit scene got out about Andrew Garfield, they would have gone to the movie to see the
So the movie would have done a lot better because of them.
Yeah.
But the impression of the Morbius movie and what it was setting up for the future of the Sony Spider-Verse and where they were going would have been so much more exciting because it'd been, okay, well, they've kind of already hinted at the fact that Venom and Morbius are in the same universe. Well, that makes sense. Well, now we know it's Andrew Garfield's version of Spider-Man that's in that universe. And now we know this is the direction they're taking. They're going to make a Sinister Six. They're going to have a Sinister Six movie. We know they're doing a Madam Web movie. We know we're going to get introduced to Kraven the Hunter, who's probably going to be in the Sinister Six. And now they're going to all team up and possibly against Spider-Man. We know that Spider-Man is Andrew Garfield, and so we're going to get another Andrew Garfield movie. It would have been...
Even if it's not true, it would, the perception and the clear focus on what direction they're going to go in would have been made known. And now it's not. It's just so awful. I mean, when corporate suits get involved in comic book fanboy stuff, it just doesn't work. You got to get someone that is in love with these characters and knows the history.
It makes me and
you said it.
Sony has somebody on staff that should have known better.
Yeah.
Avi Arad, who's one of the, worked at Marvel for decades. It's been part of the Sony kind of Spider-Man movie universe ever since back when Tobey Maguire was Spider-Man. He's been involved with this a long time. He should know better.
Yeah.
And it angers me that when the people that sat down in a room and decided that we're going to make these two end credit scenes and this is what we want them to be, that nobody had any sense to say, that's the dumbest thing that anybody's ever said.
Well, maybe they did. Maybe they did, Professor. Maybe a lot of people chimed in.
But crazy hair Pascal shut them down?
Either that or the corporate entity, the corporate mongers that were like still like woozy from the dollar signs that the other Spider-Man movie made made the decision to do this, to separate themselves. Maybe their egos got in the way to separate themselves from Marvel. I don't know.
But again, my counter argument would have been, I tell you what, I've got two ideas that accomplish the same goal, but just do it better and do it in a way that's going to excite our audience instead of separate them from our product.
Yeah.
And I don't know how. Again, there's people making tons of money working in these, positions that should have known this and that should have been better at it, and they weren't. How do two guys sitting in a neighborhood basement, two neighborhood dads, comic book fans sitting in a neighborhood basement, come up with a better idea than these guys?
Well, first of all, we're brilliant, and second of all, we don't have that corporate umbrella over us, shielding us from reality and the truth, right? So, all right, Professor, awesome ideas. I fucking love them. I mean, I think they're brilliant. And can we email them to somebody? I mean, awesome. But hey, listen, the bell has rung. Good show.
All right. Well, that's it for us this week. We'll be back next week for more Super Talk. To get in touch with us on social media, hit us up via email, supertalkpodcast@outlook.com or @supertalkpod on Twitter. Until then, stay super, everyone.
And we out.
Thanks, YouTube. Keep up the likes and subscribes. We really appreciate the amount of time you guys watch every week. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Corner of the cop, the man.